So really, I mean, you became known as a sprinter at that time. I mean, and that was, and it's always as a coach, we're always thinking about the strengths and limiters of the athlete, and then trying to match those strengths and limiters of the athlete to the event demands. So if it's like, oh wow, my natural strength is sprinting or my natural strength is climbing, and then how am I going to actually apply that to the race that I'm going to do? So and then also bringing that out and saying, well, do I train my strengths, right? Do I train my limiters? And sounds like you focused really heavily on sprinting and improving your sprint. Is that the case?
Yes, yes.
All right.
There was the belief, in fact, we had discussions about that, is that you're either born with it
Right.
or you don't have it.
Right, sure.
And
there's a lot of evidence that sprinters are born and not made to a certain point.
well, what I've discovered in personal experience as well as research is that you can convert
Sure.
muscle fiber.
Right.
So, we have two types, that the slow and the fast. And by training the fast twitch,
Right.
you can switch them over.
Right.
So if I was more of an endurance athlete, I would admit I'm not a pure sprinter, but I became an endurance sprinter.
Right.
And I focused on it. And then I brought the technique into it. And the technique was, the big part of it was the amount of time that it takes and starting the sprint when you're supposed to.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
And I developed this protocol, I think you know about this, where let's say I determined there's about 20 pedal strokes in the final effort.
Right.
And I studied films, and you could look at the pros now and when they start their sprint, when they pull out from behind someone and they're really putting everything into it. It's around 20, maybe a little more. Sometimes the pure sprinters are a little less. So I also worked with my athletes to do the same thing. I would roll out, I would go to the finish line and I would put it in the race gear that I would determine, and I would roll back 20 revolutions and I would know where that start was. And in 2016, when I came back from a broken leg, which was only 10 months prior to that, and it was a moped accident that I had. I got a moped for motor pacing. I came back from that and I rebuilt myself. But in that particular instance, I had rolled out the 20 revolutions on the race courses in North Carolina.
Right.
And so it's like I got all that figured out. The next morning I showed up and they changed the finish line.
No.
So then they had all the fences up. It's like, how am I going to, because they wouldn't let me on the road. So I get off into the grass and I'm going in the grass in the big gear, trying not to lose my balance. And I rolled it out. I did it 2 or 3 times. Long story short, in that race, there were 2 people who got away. We weren't able to bring them back. But I won the field sprint. Nice. As soon as I hit that mailbox, as soon as and I was second man. Right. I just put everything I had into it. So a lot of it is also the technique, but the practicing. Sure. And I think that that's something that you can develop, that energy system, as well as recruit muscle fibers. And so the thing is, I never knew. You don't really know that it's this how you find out is it's supposedly they take a sample out of your skin.
Well, you got to have a muscle fiber biopsy,
and it's like the size of a pen, and it's very people
painful.
don't want to do it.
No, it's very painful.
So we don't really know who is the sprinter and who isn't, who has a fast switch. Right. So that part I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. There's some good research around that, and I mean, it's clearly the genetics show and the research show that the sprinters are born and not made. And so that's where it's like, yes, you can transfer some of these, but if all you've ever got is 880 watts for 5 seconds in a sprint, we can spend 50 hours lifting weights and maybe you'll get 980 watts. But if you're Gary Hoffman and you can do 1300 watts off the couch and you've been sitting on the couch all winter long doing nothing and you're just 1300 watts, you're still going to crush the guy who can only do 980. even if he's made some difference. So I think that's where, it's so interesting, because clearly, because you have that fast switch, but it's a nice blend, because it allowed you to be also a good road racer, right? Now, how did that, tell me a little bit more in that area, and how did that then, influence your race decisions, like the races that you raced in, and like you heard about your tactics, but then did you go and specifically look for races that you knew you could do well in?
That's a good question. Mostly I was doing the races. I would do, road races. The Jefferson Cup in Charlottesville, which I won twice, was a hilly race, and I thought I was a punchy hill climber. I lived in Charlottesville, a lot of punchy hills around there, similar to
Sure.
Bedford,
Right.
and so I think one thing you said. I think that it would, in a road race, it comes down to the best sprinter that survives.
Right. Yes.
So you could be
You
the fastest sprinter
FTP
in the world, but we dropped you 10 miles.
Right.
So and that was the case. That was it was a great race, run for 20 years,
Right.
and usually the finish was rather flat.
Right.
So it was a question of how can you survive?
Right, because we talk about that all the time, in coaching, right? It's your FTP that gives you the ticket to play the game, right? So if your FTP is only 200 watts, but the average FTP of the Peloton's 300 watts, you're going to get dropped immediately. But if your FTP is 300 watts and the average FTP is 300 watts, you got a ticket to play the game. But now, how do you win? You got to win with a sprint. You got to win with your anaerobic ability. That's the actual way you win. So that's the thing that you had, right? Is that you had the high enough FTP, so then you were fit enough to be able to play the game at a really high level. But then also, okay, I've got the sprint. I've got the tactical knowledge too to do that.
Yeah, it was kind of like I said, the biggest thing really was the mental part, getting over that, because I was told that I wasn't a sprinter. I was told that you can't sprint. I was told that, and I believe that I was more of a climber or whatever. So the belief, and then like you had mentioned, the visualization,
right,
is huge, and I discovered how important and valuable visualization was.
Yeah. So give us some examples, like you mentioned earlier, you threw your arms in the air out of the sunroof of the car. What other things did you do visualization wise, and how would that help as being a coach of an athlete? Like, tell me like what you did, and then what you would do with your athletes.
Well, I've had a number of injuries, mostly off the bike, but some on the bike. And when I had broken my leg, I had visualized going to the top step of the podium. And I didn't really have enough strength at first to even walk up the stairs. So I set up a step up in my bedroom with a kettlebell, and I would step up with my right leg, which was one that was broken, and I would imagine that was the top step of the podium.
Oh, cool.
With my right leg. And I did that, Hunter, I think I did that like every day,
Nice.
And it was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And what happened is that happened.
Right.
In 2018, I won the points race on the track. And the points race is kind of an endurance sprinter's race. It's a series of sprints. And what happened was there was a fellow that got away after a sprint. I was looking for that opportunity. I bridged the gap. And this was at T-Town. I lapped the field, and then I beat him in the sprint.
Nice.
When I got to the podium, I remembered, and I stepped up with my right leg.
Nice.
It's like, this is what I've been visualizing. Right? Yeah, so it's like, it's so big, it's so important, because my thought was also always that when you can visualize it clearly, and even going farther than that, the feeling, the sound, the
right,
right,
the emotion, right?
Yeah,
you bring in all the emotion.
Yeah, it's not just like, okay, I imagine myself It's no, you really get that excitement, and you really, and then I would do that drifting off to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like, okay, and I'm doing that again, by the way,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still involved in the sport.
Right.
But
Right.
that's a pretty clear example, and I
Yeah.
think that what happens also is it makes the training easier,
Mm-hmm.
because the training is just a means to that end.
Right.
You have the end fixed in your mind. You have that clear picture. You have that emotional feeling, and there's a lot of things that also correspond with that, even going into quantum physics and everything
Right.
else, you know,
Sure.
is you're sending out those
Yeah.
vibes, you're sending out the,
Absolutely.
and you're in, you, someone says, well, whoa, let me help you with that,
Right.
or they see that you're on this journey and they
Right.
want to help you along the way,
Absolutely.
and so that definitely happens.
No, that's really cool. I think that's so critical, and like what you mentioned, right? Because a lot of people don't understand the visualization is that, like you said, they initially think that, oh, I just kind of think about it, oh, I'm just going to stand up and think, but it's really about the emotion, right? And what is it going to feel like when you stand up there? What's it going to be like when your friends are patting you on the back? What's it going to feel like when you're going across the line? Who are you going to call on the phone afterwards, and what they're going to say to congratulate you, and all the things that happen after you win is like, that's kind of the secret sauce of making those things happen. So that's so cool that you were able to do that. So when you work with an athlete as a coach, then imagine you bring in that piece of the puzzle too. Um, do you help them with goals, and making sure that their goals, then, like, kind of bring it back full circle, talking about, okay, there's strengths and limiters. As an athlete like you has strengths and limiters, but then, like, finding out those things and then matching them with the right event, and then bringing the visualization. I mean, is that all part of the stuff that you do with your athletes?
Absolutely, and I've done that with athletes over a decade or more,
Mm-hmm.
and just one of the things, the coach, I think, has to understand. I mean, for example, myself, having ridden for many years, I'm kind of wired
Mm-hmm.
to pedal the bike. Maybe other people that they're switching over,
Sure.
they might need a little different, a different kind of training, even though they might be at a similar level, which might be more tactics. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you want to look at each athlete and see, what, first of all, yes, what their goals are, what their background is, and then somehow you want to observe, either through their files,
Mm-hmm.
or now being at the velodrome, I can observe riders.
Mm-hmm.
We film their events, and we look at it, and we can comment it, we can stop it, we can play it, and then you can see what they did. So absolute visualization is
Mm-hmm.
very, very
Mm-hmm.
big,
Mm-hmm.
and something I've done, I'm doing it again now. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
all do it. You do it
Sure.
in business.
Sure.
You have an idea. I wanted to promote races at the
Right.
velodrome, and I had that vision.
Right.
And it's like, well, we're going to move down there, and we're going to make this happen. And now, after a few years, it's really, things have really opened up, and,
That's
and
cool.
I'm a promoter at the velodrome.
That's awesome.
So I think that's a big part of success in anything. And
Right.
athletes, the neat thing about athletics is that you can see that result.
Right.
You can, if you focus like that, eventually, and you're patient enough, and you just keep working at it. I was able to step on that podium, and that was a big
Yeah.
thing, because my brother, my dear brother, has passed away. Um, he was at the race in
Mm-hmm.
'76, and he knew that I'd been all these years, and I had this picture hanging up on my wall. It's like, I've got to get back to where I was. And then winning my first national championship
Mm-hmm.
was really big, and because it had always been in my mind. It was
Right.
like in the back of my mind. So
That's
that's
cool.
something I think that you have a goal, and then even over time, you have a chance
Right.
to achieve it.
Right. I mean, that's the winning mindset, right? I mean, I think that's what's so important is that you understand what the winning mindset is, and how do you get to that place, right? And when you've won, there's always this breakthrough that happens when like, how do you actually win? And I talk about that with my athletes as well, thinking about, like, how do we break through to get that first win? And once you get that first win, you're like, oh, that's how you win. And then you win again, then you win again, and then all of a sudden you realize that winners do think differently, and they do things differently as well in training. Like, just like you talking about, I mean, I know you've trained really, really hard over the years to become a great sprinter with a high FTP so you can do these road races. Tell me one of your favorite workouts. What's one of your favorite workouts that you do?
Well, we go back to the sprint workout, and one of the things, Hunter, because I'm doing a lot of studies in this area now, is the value of. Well, I think everybody, it's pretty well known now, the value of high intensity interval training,
Sure.
and being able to, in different types of intervals. I mean, we do all kinds of intervals,
Sure.
short ones, long ones, short rest, long rest.
Right.
The all-out sprint is a type of interval in itself.
Yep.
And there really hasn't been as much study as I'm still looking, but the benefits that you get from it are pretty amazing. When you think, let's say you sprint 10 times and only for 15 seconds. Well, now that's 150 seconds of work.
Right.
Now a roadie would say, well, no, I've got to do another 4 hours.
Right. Right.
But it does something to your body. It's a lot like lifting weights,
Sure.
where you're going all out. I was just talking with Fernando recently about some of the endurance riders that came out for a sprint event, and we were saying, well, they're quitting after 1 or 2 sprints. It's like, why?
Right.
Because they're not used to going absolutely all out. So yes, it would be. I would recommend that be done once a week. It's a fun workout.
And like, what is that? So give me, like, is that 6 times 30 seconds? What is the workout?
Well, it could be. There's different ways to do it, but the pure ATP energy system really only runs for roughly 15 seconds.
Right.
So that's really what you want to train. As you go past that, you're going anaerobically, which is a different system. Now, when you're in a bike race, it's not just 15 seconds. You have the ramp up, but maybe you're on somebody's wheel.
Sure.
On the track, you have a wind up. But still, to focus on that. So that's one type of sprint workout, and then you have one type of sprint effort, and then you have a rest period. Well, you need at least 3 minutes rest to recover the ATP system. I think about 75% recovers.
Right. It's a half-life for it. Yeah, exactly.
And maybe 5 minutes is a little better.
Yeah.
But, if you're at home doing a workout, you could do one every 3 minutes, and you could do 10 of these.
Okay.
And you'd be pretty tired at the end.
And how often are you doing this? Are you doing this every week? You're doing this around this year? How often are you doing this?
Well, what I'm doing now, and now I've transitioned to a track sprinter. And, as you know, I also won the match sprint on the track in 2021. So I'm training now exclusively for track sprinting. Now, it would be different if someone is an endurance rider of even a criterium or anything. But for myself, I'm doing 2 sprint workouts a week.
Okay.
And then I'm doing supplementary work on the bike, maybe VO2 max, maybe a zone 2, a longer ride, because I'm not doing much longer rides.
Okay.
One of the things that we're doing at the velodrome, which is somewhat unique, is doing a zone 2 at the rail.
Okay.
Ride at the rail. Now this is a 43-degree bank track.
Okay.
So it takes, you can't go but too slow.
Right.
And also you have the technique of and then every 5 minutes standing up all the way around. You're standing on a 45-degree angle. So I'm doing one that's it's actually based a little bit on Louis Simmons' West Side Barbell, where you have a heavy day and you have a fast day.
Okay.
And then when you get to the power phase, you're combining those two in a workout, which I could describe. But right now I'm doing a big gear day where I'm on a trainer. I would be putting it in the highest resistance and is going the same effort. And then a similar workout I do with a small gear where I'm hitting. So in the first one, I might only hit 55 RPMs,
Okay.
revolutions per minute.
So you're starting those, I mean, like, slow speed and then boom, just nailing it, mashing that gear kind of thing?
Well, I don't want to hurt myself,
Right.
Right. So I probably am starting from kind of like a rolling start.
Okay. Like 10 miles an hour maybe or something?
Yeah, yeah. But then just going all out, and then also trying to increase the effort, the power, as well as the leg speed.
Okay.
And I learned that from a coach that I had, and negative split, and basically negative splitting a sprint, which is like, I mean, I hadn't really heard that much about negative sprints, but the idea is you go faster and faster. So, but anyway, so in addition to using the heavy on one day, and then towards the end of the week, I will do a fast day. So where my sprints will be closer to 160 RPMs, same time frame, very similar workout. The nice thing about it is it's very simple. So for a roadie or trackie, I would always recommend a sprint workout. It gives you a break. You can do it outside. I would do it up the hill. I would do down the hill. Road bike, a fixed gear if you have a break. But absolutely, it's something. It's fun and it's good for the body. It's like lifting weights, whether you're using a big or a small gear. And if you're a competitor, it's going to help you.
That's cool. That's really good. That's awesome. No, I think that's a really interesting, way to think about it and look at it, and certainly that adds value to just about any cyclist. So that's really cool.